Hey everybody, this is Linda Misegadis, and you're listening to An Unconventional Guide to Success, the show that talks about real life with real people for those of you who are interested in learning from others the steps they took on their journey towards success as defined by them. Hello and welcome to An Unconventional Guide to Success. Scott, so good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you feeling?
I am, still battling this darn viral stuff. I wish almost that it was bacterial because I feel like at least they can give you something for it. But with this viral, it's just kind of like a sit and wait. So, but I'm definitely feeling better than I was because it was after coming back from Florida when I saw you last when we were together.
Yeah.
It was just kind of crazy. But how about you? I know you said you've been kind of battling the flu as well.
Maybe we shared it because when I got back from Florida also, but I had more of the flu symptoms than the sinus symptoms. But I am feeling today I'm back.
Good.
We've got Alex with us. The energy's high. The lighting is good.
Yes,
we're ready to rock and roll.
I'm so excited to have Alex in the studio with us today. This is going to be a good conversation. So, and I'll start out then by just giving everybody a little bit of Alex's background. So Alex Smith is the head of strategy and execution, HCM public sector at Oracle. And in this role, she's responsible for driving HCM cloud growth by working with customers throughout all stages of their life cycle, as well as working with internal public sector teams to develop and execute Oracle's go-to-market strategy. Previously, though, coming to Oracle, Alex worked as the Chief Human Resource Officer for the City of Memphis and was reported directly to the Mayor, Jim Strickland, from January 2016 to 2023, which is actually pretty impressive because a lot of times those appointed positions, you don't quite make it as many years as Alex has. So she did some pretty incredible things there at the city. But Alex is the architect of the city's 21st century talent management, total rewards, HRIS, and diversity practices, which helped move the city from a Glassdoor overall rating of 2.5 out of 5 in 2015 to 3.5 out of 5 in 2019. And that's pretty impressive. Also in 2018, the city was one of the first large municipal governments to move to Oracle's HCM cloud, receiving recognition in Workforce magazine for this achievement. Alex is a firm believer in community service, and I know she gives back a lot. She serves on the advisory council for 360 Insights and the advisory board for government executive media groups Route 50. I just saw the announcement from Barrett and Green, so congratulations. That's awesome. She also serves on the board of directors for the Soulsville Foundation. She holds her bachelor's degree in economics from Duke University and a master's degree in human resources and industrial relations from the University of Minnesota. And on a personal level, Alex currently lives in Memphis with her 2 daughters. So welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Quite an impressive background for sure. And Alex it doesn't even capture all of the accolades and awards that Alex has received over the last several years. So, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lots to unpack today. Lots to unpack.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's good. But Scott hates this part, Alex, but I don't care because it's my show, so I can do what I want.
Here we go. Yeah. That's another standing reality that we all live in.
Exactly. That's right. But I like to start the show with an icebreaker. I think it's kind of fun. And one of my icebreaker for us is, if you could hang out with any cartoon character, who would you choose and why? Why would you choose that character?
So I thought long and hard about this, and I was a big fan of the Smurfs growing up. I would love to sit and be with Smurfette, the only girl, right? The only girl among all of these other male Smurfs figures of some sort. And what is that like? What is that like, Smurfette, to be the only one like you? And how do you move forward? And what does that mean in terms of decision making, in terms of you having your life the way that you wanted, your opinions. There, even the baby Smurfs are all, I think, male, so it's.
I think you're right.
I never noticed that before.
So I do. I wanted that, and then I do also would love to meet with Papa Smurf too, right? So,
Yes.
as this leader, right, of all of these Smurfs that are trying to keep them safe, right?
That's true.
Right.
You know,
right.
Who do you call on for support or help recognize? I mean, as a former leader, when you're the only one and everybody's looking to you for guidance, how do you have grounding and support? So that's the path I would go down.
That's a good one.
Okay.
No, yeah, that's our first Smurf, Scott. So
it is our first Smurf, and there were two of them.
Yeah,
and whoever knew there was one female Smurf in all the Smurf stuff?
I know, isn't that crazy?
And I love the Smurfs when I was younger too. I watched them all the time.
Yeah,
it was like
true.
They sort of popped in and then they went away, and I don't even know, was I like 8 to 15 years old? But like, when did that happen?
No, it is.
Right?
That is.
Right.
Yeah, that is interesting. And
That's
you're right.
awesome.
I hadn't thought about that either. But it is funny how much that particular part of our culture, cartoons have a great insight into the soul. So it's amazing how much they've really been used to share all types of things that are going on in the world today. And so, no, I like that. What about you, Scott? Who are you choosing?
I think instead of being one, I like how we asked who you'd hang out with.
Yeah.
I like the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner scenario because I was always so fascinated how they would like kill or be killed all day, and then like, oh, break time, let's sit down and have lunch and talk it out.
Yeah,
like they were hot cold friends.
Yeah,
it was really weird.
That's
and also,
true.
how do you do that? How do you separate church and state?
The original frenemies,
true, yes.
right? The original frenemies,
right?
Yeah,
that's right.
That is
that's
very
right.
true. Yeah, but they just put it aside. Yeah.
Let's just ask, how did you, that's what I would ask when I hung out with them. How did you put that aside?
No, it is a good lesson though in separation, right? And thinking about how do you separate your job from your life and being able to have those moments of clarity that, well, that's my job, but hey, here we are sitting here hanging out.
Or
eating our
do
sandwiches.
they separate it?
Whoa, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe they don't. That's a good point.
Maybe that's all part of the game.
Yeah,
right?
No, it definitely would be for sure. No, I like it. Good one.
All right, you're up, Linda.
All right, I still love Marvin. Marvin the Martian is still one of my favorite guys. I would just love to.
She's a little older than us, Alex.
Clearly a little older than you guys.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, because I know the truth.
I'm just kidding.
Right. But I do still love my Looney Tunes. And Marvin is just such an interesting character to me. So I would like to understand like what motivates him, what drives him, and what would he do if he actually accomplished taking over the world? Like what's he going to do with it? So I'd love to. Yeah, and who wants that? Who wants that kind of responsibility? So. No, I love it.
I feel like the ice is broken.
Yeah.
I think
the ice is broken. Yes, thank you for indulging me in that.
Let's go, baby. Yes,
yeah, for sure. Well, hey, so Alex, maybe you could tell us all a little bit, like why HR? How did you find yourself working in human resources?
Oh, so it's a very interesting story. So it started off with me wanting to be a stockbroker. I wanted to be the Gordon Gekko of the world of equities. And for at least 6 years of my life, I had dedicated time to studying financial markets, equity markets. I even started economic research when I was in high school, and went to Duke as an economics major with this idea that I was going to go to Wall Street. And then my junior year, got a chance to go and tour Wall Street, go to some of the iBanks, and determined that I hated it. Was not the life that I wanted for myself. Literally saw people that were stressed out, of course, financially driven, but they just looked really unhappy. And they were missing the one thing that has been a common thread in my life since I was a little girl, which was service. My grandfather was a 3-term city councilman, and my family was committed to service from my youth all the way up into my adulthood. And so service was a part of my life. Even in high school, I was a part of the Youth as Resources Board, and I did things to help others. And I knew that I wanted to have that in my career. And when I went to Wall Street, it was clear that there was no time for that.
Yeah.
There was no availability for that, and so that was a problem for me. And so my junior year, I was at this major crossroad of what am I going to do with my life, and I got the opportunity to be a director of a small nonprofit that was in charge of basically creating one-stop community services support within community centers in Durham, North Carolina. And as being that director, I got a chance to recruit volunteers. I was helping people with job searches. I was helping people locate resources to get back on their feet or to transition. And it fed my spirit in a way where I said, this is the kind of work that I want to be doing. And so it just so happened about the same time I ran into a graduate student who was working with my mother at the University of Illinois. And they were in the master's HR program there at Illinois. And he was explaining to me all the aspects of HR. I really didn't even know what HR was as a function. And he explained the program. And he said, with you having an econ background, you actually would be a perfect fit, because not many people with economics background go into HR. It's mostly people with psychology background. So you would be actually different to come in and talk about labor markets and compensation and this analytical aspect of it, in addition to this idea around people. And so I said, what? I think you're right. And so between my real experience of being this nonprofit director and then talking with this graduate student, and I actually had developed a love for microeconomics as well as I was studying econ, I decided to go ahead and go to grad school, and it was the best decision of my life. So I went to University of Minnesota, got my master's in HR, got a chance to do everything from intern for big top 50 companies, as well as I was managing partner of their Carlson Volunteer Consulting Group, which provided nonprofit consulting services, and was able to really flourish very early in my career, and I knew it was the right decision for me. So now, 20 years later, I am still, I would say, in HR, even though now it's kind of morphed into this space of I would call it HR consulting services, if you will, and thinking about the overall system and systems that HR leaders choose. But still, I'm very passionate about the HR function.
Yeah. I love that. No,
that's amazing. And that sounds very much in line with UKG too, Linda, doesn't it? The HR function and the software pieces and the analytics of it all.
No, definitely. It's kind of, that world of the, kind of like, how do we, all of the amazing things that are out there, but now how do we take that and apply that in a way that makes sense, for sure. So, I
love, Alex, that you were self-aware of what you were witnessing at such a young age too. I mean, that's such an important thing for people to recognize, is that just because you thought that's what you wanted when you got in there, you pivoted like a day, it sounds like, fairly quickly.
Yes.
And, for our young viewers who think they've got their path, it's always good to explore and keep all options open, and you'll find success in the craziest ways, right?
Absolutely. I think to thine self be true, right? You want to be very honest and clear with yourself about how you're feeling and what you're experiencing. Resiliency and perseverance is always important, but also recognizing when something really is not the right path for you is important too, and for you to make that pivot. And I've learned pretty early on that cutting your losses is not a bad thing, and it's not.
I wish I could learn that lesson.
It's not. If something's not working for you, it's not working for you, and that's okay. It's okay. It's better for you to invest your time towards something that is working versus something that's not. And so I'm grateful that I learned that lesson. I've had a lot of wonderful, wise mentors that have helped me along the way and really given me that insight to make sure you're investing your time in what's going to pan out for you.
No, I'm glad you said that, because I'm curious, how, because, how did you at such a young age become so self-aware? Because most of us, stumble a lot. I know I did. I was not nearly that self-aware. And so like, what was it? Who were those people? And did you seek them out? Did they seek you out? Like, how did you align yourself with those mentors?
Well, the first one, which I would say, by divine intervention, was my grandfather, and having him as a mentor, my first mentor, my father figure. Because I didn't know my father, so my grandfather actually filled in the gap and helped raise me with my mother and my grandmother.
Yeah.
And watching him as an entrepreneur, as a politician, as the patriarch for our family, I learned a lot about the importance of relationships, the importance of due diligence, the importance of understanding
Mm-hmm.
systems, and that everything is connected. And he would often say,
Yeah.
you never burn bridges. You never know when you're going to need to lean on different relationships. So it's always important that try to cultivate and build relationships where you can, no, because it can pay dividends for you. He's the one who taught me the importance of networking and the ability to see yourself as a connector, and
Yeah.
learning from others, and also being able to pay that forward as well, by helping others too. So I learned a lot from him, and from that, I really set my own path of building my own network, and every stage of my career I've made it my business, really, to reach out and to get to know people, and really seek to understand, in every single way.
Oh, wait, let me stop you right there. Tell me again, you made it your business to what, for our young
Seek
listeners?
to
Yeah.
understand. Everything
Yeah.
is
Seek to understand and network.
someone taught me a long time ago that everything is the way it is for a reason. Things didn't just happen because people just randomly decide to do things. Everything happened for a
Yeah.
reason. So before you can look to change anything, you have to respect where the organization has been, what they've been through, the journey they've gone through, and seeking to understand that is extremely important. And I would tell you that's one of the things I coach my mentees on, is taking the emotion out of it, taking your judgment
Yeah.
out of it, and just seek to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then once you understand that, then you can start to introduce some ideas and concepts on how you can help them evolve and take it to the next level. But you got to respect where they are right now.
Yeah. I like
And
that.
making that your job is the interesting nuance to what you're saying as well. It's not always about the software and the product and the role. It's the function
Yes.
and the seek to be understood, and the how can I help and help me understand concepts that a lot of people graduate college, or they go into roles thinking they're going to command a result without that help me understand part, or the mentors mentee relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, really important that you honed in on that. And it's lovely to hear for those who are questioning how that goes. It clearly taught you how to pay attention to how you responded to what you thought was your career path.
Absolutely.
And really, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
No, definitely. Talk a little bit more about the power of networking, because obviously with your grandfather being in politics, it's all about networking in politics, right? And I'm curious kind of how learning about that, and then maybe even how that helped you in your role in the city, because, obviously the challenge of working in government is that it's not just the job side of it. Politics are still very much a part of the role that you play, even in human resources, in government. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I learned, early on, is that everyone has a story. And the key to good, effective networking is learning their story, is asking them questions to be able to understand, once again, their journey.
Yeah.
And when you unlock that, you learn about, how they're connected to different people, and what their role is, and the interplay. And you can start to see the web, if you will, the web of interconnection between different individuals and different organizations. And what you
Yeah.
start to learn, and over time, and I'll translate to my city government experience, is that, at the end of the day, leaders attract leaders and policymakers attract policymakers. And there is this very just very close interweb between all of the leaders and all of the policymakers together. And each one of them has their own agendas. And sometimes they form alliances, and sometimes they can be in opposition. But it's usually rarely ever necessarily personal. It is about them trying to move their agenda forward, which they believe in wholeheartedly in their own way. And so your ability to understand what those agendas are, understanding those interconnections, understanding where those kind of intersections are happening across your organization or across the broader city, it helps you in being able to make sure you can create the right alliances to be able to get certain things done, or for you to understand what your opposition is going to be before you even say anything. Right? You already know that if you're interested in, moving a certain thing forward, for example, increasing minimum wage, that you're going to have certain businesses that are experiencing cost pressures that are going to naturally be against that because they're trying to keep their costs down. And then you may have certain other labor organizations that are going to be very excited about that because it means more money for their membership, and maybe even retailers that might be excited about that. So, understanding those dynamics. So the networking part, it really taught me to understand the system of things, understand those agendas. And then coming into city government, I was able to take that and build my own sense of networking from there, and starting internally first with understanding, the different division or department heads and what was important to them, and how they were connected. And then going out externally and then understanding the different nonprofit partners under government agencies, what their different agendas were and how things are interconnected. And so that helped us move a lot of things forward very quickly. So for example, during the pandemic, one of the issues that we saw very early on is that there was going to be a challenge for our essential workers who had children to be able to have reliable childcare during the pandemic.
I remember that.
And so because I already had a relationship with the YMCA and our parks department, I was able to make a few phone calls and say, hey, is there any way that we could look at some sort of partnership support with the YMCA to see if they can offer some childcare support to our employees as essential workers during the pandemic. And luckily, the answer was yes. And so we were one of the few agencies that was able to have what we call student learning hubs within our community centers to be able to provide free childcare support to our workers during the pandemic. That's
because they didn't want to call it childcare. They needed to call it something else, right? Interesting. Yes. Very interesting. Yes. Good move.
Yeah.
Because then it's workshops and it's educational and it's community service versus daycare, which has a different liability and a different connotation to it.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. But networking allowed for that. The ability to pick up the phone and have a conversation allowed for that.
No, well, and the interplay, the word interplay really jumps out at me for you. When you said interplay, I was like, wow, that dominoes just fall. Understanding interplay is so key and critical.
Yeah.
And that's great stories.
No, that is really good. Well, and I'm curious too, Alex, throughout your journey, you've clearly had to, you're a goal-oriented person, I can tell, just in talking to you. So, talk a little bit about that and the importance that played as you kind of have come through this journey and the path that you've been on. Can you talk a little bit about how important goals are and maybe how you even incorporated that into, whether consciously or subconsciously, into your journey to get where you are right now?
Absolutely. So I would say that goals are sparks of hope. And without goals, you may not have any hope. And because it gives you something to reach for. I am a big proponent of SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, time bound, my HR is coming out, reasonable, but I firmly believe that goals are the fundamental aspect that allows for you to have hope for something better and to give you something to strive for, which if you do it right, and you have a strategy, being able to break that strategy down into goals is what helps make things achievable. So weight loss is my favorite example of that. When I was in high school, I was 260 pounds, and I had always had this dream about one day, being a size 10 and being, 100 pounds lighter. And it was the actual act of sitting down and breaking in things into whether it's monthly goals, weekly goals, and starting with those small behavioral changes each week that I was able to ultimately get to my goal, my large size goal. But this ability to be able to break things down into smaller sizable goals and work towards that and communicate that and give yourself, I think this adaptability and flexibility and grace to be able to.
Yes. I knew you were going to say that.
To be able to, to achieve that. But even if you don't achieve it in necessarily the time frame, be able to work through that. I think those are healthy practices for you to be able to continue to have growth and continuous learning. And so I practice that as a leader as well. I'm very big on, yes, we want to improve our time to fill to less than 50 days. But when I started the City of Memphis, we were at 120 days. So to say to them, we're gonna go from 120 to 50, that would have overwhelmed everybody. So the first goal was, can we get it to 90 days? That was actually the first goal. First goal was, can we get it to 90 days? That. And for 2 years, we worked extremely hard. And next thing I know, we're at 75 days. Right. Wow. And then at 75, we were like, okay, now let's try for 60. Okay. And then once we got to 60, then we were like, okay, let's try for 50. And then it was like, okay, let's try for less than 50. And now the team is filling roles in less than 50 days, 7 years later. Awesome. But you have to start, first of all, measuring where are you, and being honest about that. But then setting those smaller goals and going down the path. I think it's just a healthy leadership practice to have.
I really like that you bring up specific, measurable, attainable, reachable. I can't even remember the R in that also, but SMART goals are even on my daughter's classroom in 10th grade. I was in her classroom this morning and I was like, wait, you have SMART goals written up in the corner of your chalkboard. You're bringing it up here. I wrote about it in the book, and people need to realize the systemic reach of SMART goals falls into self-care, working at peak performance, habits, attainable, continuous learning. All the words you threw in around SMART goals is really magical because it does have such a starlit effect on all the different areas of being a leader.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you for saying that.
I'm curious though, Alex, what, how did you learn about creating those goals? Was that something where did that come from? Because I think that's part of the challenge sometimes, right? When you're young, how do you?
She just knew it. She's just brilliant.
She's clearly brilliant. But I'm curious, what was the influence that gave you the forethought to go, all right, I'm going to accomplish this, and the only way that I'm going to accomplish this is to do that? Because I do think that that's a fundamental component that's missing in a lot of not just young people, in people's lives in general, is just that concept of goals. And what does that really mean? So where did that come from for you?
That's actually a great question. I've actually never been asked that question. I have to say, I think it's my parents teaching me golf as a young child. And one of the things about golf, anybody who's played golf know this, whenever you first start, you are absolutely horrible. Everybody's absolutely horrible, right? You miss the ball, you lose balls, you have divots in the ground, all these things. And so what you learn is that every time you play, first of all, you should get some lessons, but every time you play, you focus on the small things to get better. So whether it's your drive, And okay, you know, so you have a goal that has, you know, a hole that has a par, right? So
Yeah.
maybe the first time you played, you did 5 over par. And then, you know, a month later, you're 4 over par. And
Yeah.
then 6 months later, you're 3 over par. And then, you know,
Yeah.
and you just keep working. And then what you learn is over time, what stance, what grip, what process works for you. And so I think learning golf as a young child, it kind of taught me this idea around patience, setting goals, giving yourself
Yeah.
time, getting training to go along with it, um, and and going through this kind of continuous improvement process
Yeah.
that will work for you. And so I would say that was a starting point. And then the second piece I'll say is, you know, when my first, you know, I would say full-time job out of graduate school is I worked for Microsoft, and I was an HR journalist for one of the software development teams. And when I first got introduced to the high tech industry, they talked about this importance of betas and what they call dog foodings, where you have to, try out the product as they're working on it. And when you first try it out, there's going to be bugs. It's not going to be
Yeah.
perfect. And as the product is better, as the bug level count goes down, then you move into beta, and then you move, to, different levels till you're ready to launch it into the market. But this idea that it's not perfect. Whenever you start, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be bugs. There's going to be problems, but you don't give it up. You just keep working at it, and you
chipping
keep
away,
chipping away at it, right? You keep chipping away at
brought
it.
the golf back.
Right?
Bring the golf back.
Yes,
That's right.
and you set goals along that. Like, we might have 500 bugs right now. We're going to get it to 200 bugs, and we're going to work on it until we get there. And then once we get to 50 bugs, then we'll be ready to take it to the next level. But this idea that, you got to start somewhere, and you have to be committed to keep working on it. And you have to be committed to continuing to work at reaching each goal. And as you face barriers for reaching that goal, there's a process for you trying to figure out how to remove those barriers. Is it more people? Do you need more training? Do you, just like with golf, it's like, okay, maybe I need more lessons. There's something that's happening here. So not being willing to give up. I think at the end of the day, what I'm saying is what I've learned over my life, thank goodness, I think, is that you don't give up. There's always an opportunity for grace. There's always an opportunity for a mulligan. And we should stay committed to the things that are important things that we want to go after.
Yeah, I like that. No, that's really good. As I do remember when I first started taking golf lessons, they were like, okay, now go hit 100 balls. And I thought, well, that's stupid. How is that going to teach me anything? But that's exactly where it starts, right? Because to your point, you have to keep making these small modifications, and you learn about your form and your swing and the this and the that. And it's a constant evolution of trying to figure it out. But the only way to get there is to keep hitting the ball. So if you stop hitting the ball, it doesn't work. So,
and I'm so sorry to hear that for you guys, because when I pick up a golf club, it's like magic. And
I've seen your videos. There's nothing magical about your golf swing.
I par every hole. I hit every drive. It's just not what I'm experiencing. So I don't really understand what you're
perfection,
saying.
Yes. No, I love it. That's great.
It's a great analogy, and it's a good one to bring into our community too, because it's in sports. It's rinse, lather, repeat.
Yeah.
It's goals, it's habits, it's peak performance. I love it. I love it.
No, it was really good.
Awesome.
Well, so you were a very busy woman, Alex, and you have 2 daughters. How do you find, what do you do for self-care? Because you've got to find the balance in all of that, right? And I don't know if I consider golf self-care. That almost is like self-torture sometimes. But what do you do? How do you find creating that balance so that you don't get, find yourself kind of out of whack a little bit?
No, that's a great question. I think so. First and foremost, I meditate and I pray, and I try to set aside time to start my day that way every day. I find that just having even 15 minutes of quiet in the morning, and so I'm willing to get up early to get that quiet time, but having just that 15 minutes of quiet really does make a difference for the rest of my day. The second piece is that I've moved into this beautiful space of seeing the importance of congruency between my career and my home life. And so the things that I think are important to practice. So we talk about goal setting, right? We talk about, shared goals or having shared accountability. I try to practice that both in my career and my home life. So for example, both girls have to finish their homework before they can get on their tablets. That's a rule that I have. We have to be able to talk about things together. If somebody's upset, we're going to talk about it together and problem solve together. So more and more, I'm achieving my balance, I think, by seeking to practice the right behaviors, both at work and at home, and seeing my role as a teacher to my children in respect to that. But I would say, working out as well and trying to eat healthy, all those things to try to keep everything in balance. A glass of wine every once in a while, but not too many. All those things.
Absolutely. No,
That's
I
great.
think those are really good. Well, and it's so important because I think, especially in your, finding that balance and keeping that is so important for us, especially in the world we live in today, because work can become so consuming of our lives, and we lose sight of that sometimes. We lose sight of what's important, and so I like that. And what you said. So, how do you incorporate goals in with your daughters then? What are you teaching your daughters to help them as they're moving forward through all of this?
Yes. So I have to be age appropriate. So I have a 5-year-old and a almost 11-year-old.
Wow.
And, so the goal for the 5-year-old is, all right, let's make up our bed and get our clothes on before 7:00. And so, but also let's be a leader. Let's be kind to our friends. We talk about, how did school go today? And if we had a rough day, we talk about, well, why did we have a rough day? And who do we need to apologize to the next day? So this kind of process of talking about how things are going and how do we course correct the next day are some of the things that I'm working on with my youngest child. With my oldest child, it really is about getting into more strategic thinking. So, yes, you say you want to be a part of the drama club. Okay, well, what do we need to be doing now to help get you ready for that? What do we need to be practicing now so that you're ready for that?
Forward
thinking. So this idea of forward thinking or creating a work back plan. You have something that you want to go after. Okay, let's think a month ahead, 2 months ahead. What are things we need to be doing now to prepare for that?
Well, if I remember correctly, Alex, you said she is preparing in that she is photo ready and making you photo ready at every intersection. Did you not say that earlier today?
Yes, absolutely.
So she's ready. Stage ready.
Stage ready.
That's awesome.
TikTok, here we go.
All the time.
And thinking about that too, Alex, like what advice would you give to young people as because you're not to point out your age, but you are a young woman. Like you've got a lot of life ahead of you. You've accomplished a ton. What advice would you give to young people? And then kind of like, how would you guide them? So I know you've got mentees, but like, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm 41. And my knees show it. Everything matures.
Yes,
for sure.
It does. Yes, it does.
Does she know who she's talking to? Linda?
I know.
Does she know who she's
We're a little further in the maturity level. A little
bit further.
Yeah, a little bit further along. But no, it's good.
No, I sat next to on the plane next to this young man. I was 26. And
it's all perspective.
Yeah, it's all perspective.
Right?
Complete perspective. I was like, oh wow.
Baby.
Yeah. And so, I think the one of the big things that I would say to young people is to have an appreciation for where they are right now. I think in some ways they, many of the young people I've met, they want to be CEO in 4 years, and they want to be VP. They want to be married in 2 years. They have all these, it's great to have goals. It's absolutely amazing to have goals. I'm a big proponent of goals, but I think there's also an important component of having an appreciation for where you are at this particular moment, because the truth is life is like stages or like building blocks, and at each stage there's a lesson to be learned, there's skills to be cultivated, there's pruning or grooming that needs to happen, and when you rush it, you miss something. And when you miss something, when you graduate to that next level, you may have to do some remedial work to get whatever that is so that you're ready for the next thing. And so
well said.
I'm very big on appreciate where you are now. Yes, I know you want to be VP. I remember being 22 years old and thinking about, oh my goodness, I can't wait to run HR. I can't wait to do this. But at that time, I was an HR assistant helping to key in payroll. And I'm so glad that I had that experience.
Absolutely.
I remember having to put down tissue boxes because they were doing a layoff. Right. And I'm so glad I had that experience. And why am I glad? Because 15 years later, when I actually am running HR and I'm having to make a software decision about our HR system, I remember the days of having to key in payroll and what I hated about it and what made that easier when I unfortunately had to make decisions about layoffs. I remember the empathy that was necessary to be able to make that decision and be able to comfort people during that type of loss. So every stage matters. And I would encourage young people to really fully get the most out of the stage that they're in now as they're pursuing their dreams.
I love that. Yeah, that's really very insightful. And I agree with you. I think that we've lost sight of how important life lessons are, and that it is a journey and you have to experience it. And going through all of that if you just go from, point A to point B, there's and not appreciate the in between on how you got there, you kind of lose sight of that, to your point. And you do have to go through those experiences. It's what helps us be smarter, better, more functioning people, I think, is that you do kind of have to go through all of that, and the good and the bad, right? Because you experience a lot of bad along the way too, and sometimes we get very caught up in that, and we find ourselves in that negative headspace. But it's just, to your point, it's a moment in time, and I got to experience that moment in time, and then I'm going to move on. I'm going to move to the next and the next.
And to complement what you're saying, Linda, is you're going to experience it, because if you're fast tracked around it, it will reconcile itself later.
Absolutely.
So you don't get to fast track yourself to these higher roles without reconciling the training that's needed, or the landmines, or the double the work that would be needed to input into performing that function. It will catch up to you.
Yes,
it will.
And so there's real truth to. I think this is a really wise statement, Alex, and I think it's a really wise thing to highlight, because we've never done that on this show either, and that is the fast tracking reconciliation concept, right? You might be able to bypass something now to make a jump sooner, as long as you're strategic with that, and in the jump allocate for the time to learn what you missed in the jump.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
And if you don't allocate that time, then you're working twice as hard, or you're going to fail and be sent back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And when you see those situations that people really fall from grace, there's usually an arrogance and ego component that goes along with that, where they were not willing to do the work necessary to close those gaps, even though it was pointed out to them. And so, coming into whatever stage you're in with that humility and, learning what you can. But if you are advanced, quicker than what you expected, having that humility to say, you know what, I'm going to network. I'm going to read. I'm going to learn. I'm going to take that class. I'm going to sit down and spend some time. Those are all important, I think, keys to being successful. I will tell.
Yeah, you don't get there without. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You don't get there without that humility of, like you said, I was fast-tracked in a lot of my career, and I still took the time to go back and learn the public speaking, learn the art of communication, learn how to organize myself, and get certified under the leadership that fast-tracked me, that knew I was bringing the right skills as a leader, that they pulled me up and then said, now go learn this. Out of respect for the promotion, I went and learned it.
That's right.
And to your point, and and those assholes that didn't were the ones that have failed or have fallen off the relationship circuit and are no longer networking in a leadership capacity. So it does reconcile itself.
It does.
Yeah.
If you don't bring that word of humility, I wanted to highlight that.
Yes. No, and what I was going to say, just connecting to that is, I became head of HR for the city of Memphis at 33 years old. And I was not from Memphis, and that was my first major leadership role.
What the hell happened to me?
And I get thrust into this position. But one of the first things that I did was I thanked God for it. And then I became extremely humble and said, okay, let me learn about pension. Let me learn about benefits in a very deep way. Let me spend time with people to understand more about police and fire and solid waste and why they're doing what they're doing and how they came to this. And being willing to spend a lot of late nights and put in the work. And when I look at our success, it's because of that. I think that humility and how people saw me actually behave that way, and then it role modeled, and people felt comfortable being the same and having that level of vulnerability within our organization. So, I just think in general, that's the best way to lead. That's the best way to learn, is to come into it with that perspective.
No,
I wish I could remember the author that said the best skill of any leader, and it's not the word humility, but it was the word compassion, which tightly aligns to humility. That is the number one skill set of any leader in any industry.
Absolutely.
And you're hitting it right on the head. And I don't know that, Linda, we've ever talked about that on the show, the way that it's being presented today. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's really an
I think
important
this has been
thing.
Really good. Yeah. No, I love your perspectives on all of this, Alex. It's been great. So curious, so what's next for you? I know you've just started in this role with Oracle.
What could possibly be next?
What's next? You've done so many amazing things, and certainly have a lot. But what's the future for Alex?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at this point, the fair answer is I really am not sure.
That's all right.
But what I do know is that I'm in a spirit of learning and taking really everything that I've learned in my public sector life and sharing that with as many HR leaders across the public sector atmosphere as I can. I have this just strong desire to see, public sector agencies be as successful and as effective as possible. I think our communities around the U.S. need it.
I agree.
Desperately. In this kind of post-COVID world that we're in, where we're seeing, crime rates are up. We're seeing these huge education gaps that have developed and all these different things, mental health challenges, all these things. We need our government to perform at its highest level. And if I can take just anything that I've learned from my time in Memphis and share that can help move some organizations forward, that's what I want to do. So I see that being my future in some way. I don't know exactly how all of that will shape, but my goal is to just continue to be that advocate for public sector.
I love that. Well, you've done such an amazing job on that platform in really elevating that human capital and the role of the CHRO and the strategic role of the CHRO in the public sector space, because, as you know, historically, it's been much more of a less strategic, much more tactical type of role, and has not really had a seat at the table. And I think the fact that you've been able to so positively utilize your platform in a way to get that message out there, because you're right, without happy, engaged government employees, we can't solve any of the problems that government is trying to solve. And that's such an important factor that gets missed so frequently in trying to solve to these problems, is that you kind of got to start with the people who are actually working in government. And that starts from a human capital perspective and that leadership.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, so we always like to end the show with 3 questions. And so our first question for you is, what is a common myth about your job or field of expertise?
I think there's a myth that HR people are party planners, and that
I like that.
that we're
wow.
And the truth is, most HR people I've met are actually introverts.
And, that is so true.
Oh
my goodness,
and actually would run away from a party.
I like that. That is true. There is a total misconception about that. That is a good one. I love that one. So that's good. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned so far over your career?
That you can learn from anyone.
I like
that. You can learn from anyone. And that, whether it is the janitor, or, the intern, or, your most senior executive, that there's something to be learned by anybody that you engage with. And so it's important to
in walks that humility.
Respect that. Respect that the life and the journey that people have been on, and respect that you can learn from them.
I like that.
Wonderful.
No, I think that is an important
that's a good one
for sure. And my last question for you is, what's one lesson that your job has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
Relationships matter.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Relationships
my
matter.
favorite.
Yeah.
Can't do it alone.
You
can't do it alone.
You are not an island.
I agree with you, Alex.
No organization is of one. To be an organization, you've got to have at least 2 people.
That's right.
I mean, a quorum is not one.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
And I like that.
I love that. Actually, my favorite thing. Yeah.
And so I think learning how to resolve conflicts, learning how to develop relationships, learning how to build trust, Those are things that I learned in my career and in my job. But I would tell you, what? One of the interesting things highlights for me this year, or even aha moments for this year, is that I needed to do that with my children. That my relationship with my children, that building trust with my children, matter just as much as how it helps me at work. And so I've had to make a conscious decision to say, do my children trust me? They know I provide for them, but do that as a person? Do they trust me? Do I have a relationship with them? Do I know what they like? Do they know what I like? Beyond me making sure that they get their homework done, what does that relationship look like? So I think that's a universal statement, that relationships matter.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think that's a really good point, because we just assume that inherently our children trust us, right? Because, we're their parents. Of course they trust us. But I think it's a really good point. We aren't deliberate in that enough, like we should be. So that's a good one. I really like that.
Yeah.
So
Alex, I
exceptional
have
one.
loved having you here, and I hope you'll come back in the later.
Yes.
We'd love to hear kind of more, especially as you embark on this new journey that you're on. And I can't wait to watch all the amazing success I know you're going to have, because you've just done so many incredible things, and I know you're going to be a huge difference maker in government and the efforts out there, and just in
Alex,
life in general. You're just such a wonderful person. So glad.
Yeah,
to
and the smile is radiant. The humility is present. The continuous learning is a model podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yes.
It's fantastic. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everyone.
This has been fun.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, Scott, it was great to see you as always. I hope you continue on getting better. And
thank you. You too.
Yeah, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. An Unconventional Guide to Success is an inspirational, motivated series hosted by Scott Montgomery and Linda Misegadis, recorded on Riverside.fm. Music, editing, and production by Logan Misegadis. Check out Scott Montgomery's new book, How Did You Get Here, and all the helpful related materials at www.howdidyougethere.com. Thank you for joining us on our journey. If you would like to reach out to us, our contact information is in the show notes.